I'm John Haer, president of the board of Battle of Homestead Foundation, and welcome to our 2022 annual meeting. Tonight, we'll look back on a tumultuous year of hope and challenge. For our main program, we'll try to unravel a knotty but pivotal issue. How can working people and labor join forces with environmental activists to confront impending climate change disaster? That's the knotty issue. We'll hear from two stellar social activists, Patty DeMarco and Ramsay Stevens, who will show that a burgeoning new sustainable economic model can and must be the essential solvent to mix the water of green initiatives with the oil of lost jobs, wage inequality, and market control. We'll put our speakers first on the agenda, followed by a brief question and answer period. All audience questions must be in writing and submitted to the chat function. Just write them down. We'll pick them up and relay them to our speakers tonight. And after that, after the question and answer period, we'll highlight our organization's accomplishments and we'll share our plans for the next few years. Also, you won't want to miss actor and playwright Wali Jamal, live on Zoom with us with an exciting new story written by a Battle of Homestead member and adapted by Wali Jamal, Post-Gazette Actor of the Year 2018. So we're very happy Wali be here. You won't want to miss him. Hang on through the business. Who are we? Our founders were inspired by the dramatic labor conflict of the 1892 Battle of Homestead. The nation's eyes were then on the strong steel union that had built powerful alliances with the community and the region, not just Homestead, but the whole Steel Valley and Pittsburgh. Yes, this epic struggle was ultimately defeated by the monopoly steel and coal empire controlled by Andrew Carnegie and his henchman, Henry Clay Frick. But we dig deeper. We dig deeper to discover and celebrate the seeds of hope. And that was in the resilient workers in that community, in that region, and the whole community struggle to maintain their dignity and their jobs. Our mission is to grow those seeds of hope by promoting a people's history, but also to work to empower today's workforce and to build strategy for a future of work that benefits all working families and our nation. We value the dignity of work. We celebrate labor's rich heritage and its pivotal place in our society. We advocate community engagement through programs and partnerships, and we work to strengthen human rights and build a robust democracy. And Lord knows we need a robust democracy. So let's start our meeting and recognize the seminal importance of organized labor in building a sustainable economy. Let's reflect on a statement by Gar Alperovitz, one of the leaders of the New Economy movement, as quoted in the book, Pathways to Our Sustainable Future. Alperovitz says, over the past few decades, a deepening sense of the profound ecological challenges facing the planet and growing despair at the inability of traditional politics to address economic failings have fueled an extraordinary amount of experimentation by activists, economists, and socially minded business leaders. As the threat of a global climate crisis grows increasingly dire, and the nation sinks deeper into an economic slump for which conventional wisdom offers no adequate remedies, more and more Americans are coming to realize that it's time to begin defining, demanding, and organizing to build a new economy and a movement for a new economy. Now, I proudly introduce our first speaker, the author of the book I have just quoted, if not the quote itself, but the author of the entire book. She's former director of the Rachel Carson Homestead Association, former director of the Rachel Carson Institute at Chatham University, She's a visiting research professor at Carnegie Mellon University, councilwoman for the borough of Forest Hills, chair of the finance committee there, or was chair of the finance committee. And most importantly to us, she's a member of Battle of Homestead Foundation and a wonderful, wonderful leader and a person that we all turn to when it comes to the environment, labor, and where the heck we're heading. I want to introduce Patricia Patty DeMarco. Patty.
Thank you, John. It's so good to see all of you, my friends, this evening. I miss seeing you all together. It has really been delightful to have a chance to see you all on Zoom tonight anyway. I really am so honored to have an opportunity to introduce to you one of the real catalysts for change in the labor movement across the country. You know, one of the things we have to recognize is that here in Pittsburgh, we were really the cradle for the foundation of the middle class. We have so much leadership potential here just in our DNA, in our history, which we struggle so hard to preserve. We need to look at how labor can be a critical force in shaping the future we all want to have. And I think what we've lost touch with is that we can't be passive and just wait for what the next industry initiative throws at us. Labor has a role at the table. Labor has a voice that needs to be heard. We need to convince people that we can help shape the future we want. If we aren't at the table, we will be on the menu. And I met Ramsay Stevens at a Reimagine Appalachia roundtable on labor. And he was just a breath of fresh air because he brings a completely different perspective to the role of labor in dealing with these problems. Ramsay has a Master's of Arts from New York University in Sustainable Finance. And he is the program director for the Project Development Platform. And this is a program of California-Nevada Labor Management Cooperation Committee of the National Electrical Contractors Association and International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. Try saying that 5 times fast. Okay. He is, through that project, the Project Development Platform, Ramsay has helped union contractors and their partners develop sustainable real estate and energy projects. The Project Development Platform has won numerous industry awards for its projects and leadership in the development of union-built net zero energy projects. Ramsay, the floor is yours. We look forward to hearing from you.
Well, Patty, thank you so much for that incredible introduction. And everyone, it's a true pleasure and honor to be with you this evening. You know, I think we all aspire in our lives to be able to affect history in whatever small way we possibly can. And, you know, the work you do here to honor the history of the labor movement is invaluable. You know, people like myself and all my colleagues wouldn't get to do what we do today if folks like yourselves didn't fight to make sure that people outside of the labor movement appreciate its importance to history broadly, not just in our country, but around the globe, of course. So with that, I actually would like to pull up a presentation here. So I hope everyone can see my screen now. And as Patty said, I work for a very interesting entity. I work for the California-Nevada Labor Management Cooperation Committee of the National Electrical Contractors Association and the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, also known as NECA and the IBEW. And we are an entity that was allowed under the Labor Management Cooperation Act of 1978. And we are essentially an entity that is exempted from federal antitrust law with the explicit purpose of supporting market development for organized labor, specifically for our industry, that is the electrical industry at large in California and Nevada. But there are LMCCs for all of the building trades and other unions all around the country. They all have varying remits and varying sizes and varying focuses. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm very passionate about them as opportunities to show the value of labor and business working together, which I recognize is ironic, speaking to this group in particular, I think if you had said to the folks that fought at the Battle of Homestead 100 years from now, labor and management are going to be on the same side working together, they may have thought, how is that even possible, right? You must be out of your mind. But my life is a testament to the fact that doing so is actually good business. And when business is done well, it's an easy thing to say, but it's true. A rising tide lifts all boats, right? When our contractors are participating in a boom or are wildly profitable, the reality is that they're in a more generous place to make more investments and negotiate in a more constructive way with their labor partners. And this, of course, goes both ways, right? The stronger our electrical membership is, the more competent they are, the more capacity, the more energy they're going to bring to their job, and the better work they're going to do. So, I know I'm preaching a lot of this to the choir here and the preachers, but as I said, it's very exciting for me to speak to you today because this is something I've dedicated my entire life to, and I hope that we're just at kind of the tip of the iceberg in terms of what labor can do to help solve our broader energy and societal questions, but I would frankly say to this group, crises that face us in this country. So just highlight for a second, what our combined strength is. It is ultimately the fact that we are able to do advocacy and policy work at every level of government and every level of society, direct engagement in our communities, all the way to very abstract marketing and educational campaigns. We in turn are also able to invest meaningfully in project development, and that's where I sit in this little cycle. My job is to be on the ground, understanding how do we seize new business opportunities as they arise, be they organically or inorganically, through our direct investments, as Patty was alluding to, getting ahead of the curve, saying, hey, this is a market we want to go into. How do we get there? And then, of course, through education, right? So we at the end of the day, we run the largest university system of a sort in the country, right? I mean, we provide apprenticeship education that gives people, the ability to go out and have a meaningful career and have a meaningful impact in their local communities through skilled and trained work. So, I think it's important to highlight for a second to everyone here, our power as the organized building trades. So, there are over 1 million organized building trades members in the United States as of today. That's 1 out of every 7 workers in the construction industry. But that's, the other 6 million are not organized, right? There's no way to get them to attend a demonstration or to email their congressman or council member in an organized way, let alone ensure that the work they are doing is, providing them a meaningful quality of life, let alone creating higher economic value for their community. We have $2.5 trillion in pension fund assets. We are precluded from using these as ambitiously as we would like to because of the Taft-Hartley and the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, which is a good thing. I'm the first person to admit that. But thankfully, because of initiatives that I know some of the folks here today are involved in, and some of our leading members of Congress, we are starting to, I don't want to say chip holes in that wall, but we're starting to create avenues to constructively use these assets to ensure that pension fund investors aren't taking our dollars, our assets, and investing them in projects that do harm to ourselves, let alone our broader community. We have thousands of local organizations and representatives like myself on the ground in every state and every community. And of course, we have extensive political, nonprofit, and for-profit investments. So I'm here with you this evening to specifically talk about green energy projects. We like to think of green energy projects really, though, within the broader portfolio of advanced energy services. So this is really everything that the country is going to need to stay environmentally and economically competitive going forward, right? I mean, as we all know, climate change is an accepted reality, and climate change is becoming ever more of a material risk to business, right? So, it's not so much a question of do we have to make these investments because we care about the environment? It's that we have to make these investments because we care about having a functioning economy. And the target number right now, as we see it in the electrical world, is $250 billion. That's $75 billion that we're going to need into photovoltaic solar. Most of that is utility scale, but that does include distributed solar as well. Building energy services, this is really the net zero energy market broadly. It's everything that goes into making sure that our built environment is as energy efficient as possible. And then, of course, advanced electricity delivery and management. So this is very interesting because this is both transmission and distribution as we know it today. It's some baseload power, but it's also a lot of electric vehicle charging stations. And electric vehicle charging stations are worth talking about for just a moment, because the utility of the future is unequivocally going to be based on all of us plugging our cars in to charge, or to use our cars to charge the grid. So I use every opportunity I have when I'm speaking to any group of people to let everyone know that, your car, the electric car you invest in, is not just something for you, so you feel good about making a difference in terms of your carbon impact as you drive around, but it's a key and critical investment to making sure that our grid at large can decarbonize. So we've gone over this slide. It's pretty much everything we know we need to do to have a sustainable energy system, and by extension, an economy. When you work with us, we build real stakeholdership for you at every level of society. We are much, much, much more diverse ethnically than people appreciate nowadays. We actually are starting to really come in line with the broader demographics in our country. So we're very, very proud of that. And of course, when you do a project with us, we actually do local workforce development, right? We're not just in and out. We're not just trying to extract as much as possible from our laborers. We're trying to actually invest in long-term market capacity and labor capacity on the ground that can translate to high road careers and sustainable ways of living for many people and entire communities, right? That's really the key. Is if we do what we need to do at our best, the economic and environmental externalities that we create will inure to communities at large, and by extension, our entire country. So, kind of getting to brass tacks from where I sit, ultimately, why should you do a project with us? It is because we just have the best workforce you will find, right? Our electricians have, gone through 4 years of training and education in some form or another by the time they become journeymen. And if you are building anything that has either substantial environmental, health and safety, or financial risk, I mean, that's the big one, right? If you are spending $75 billion on solar projects, you need to know that those projects are going to work, let alone not, catch on fire and endanger people. And we are your best way of doing that above all else. So my program is the project development platform. We are specifically tasked with thinking and working transactionally on the ground. So our job is to go out there and look for concrete business opportunities wherever we can find them. We try to think and work like a startup in that we stay very, very lean. We use software. We've invested heavily in software. And I think that's worth highlighting for a moment. Most people don't think of organized labor as investing in software development, but we've gone ahead and done that. And we hope that more labor organizations do so as well, right? There's a famous expression, software is eating the world. We think it's very, very important for organized labor to make sure it's making the investments it needs to operate in the digital economy as competitively as possible. Of course, I know I'm talking to a lot of organizers, right? We think always investing in maintaining our network is 90% of the game, right? All business projects at the end of the day are organizational activities, right? It takes different organizational resources, but if you're going to go out and do a solar project, you're ultimately in the business of organizing people to get on the same page and build something, right? It is kind of a little bit of a mini political movement, if you will. So my program is very focused on, providing exactly that, organizational support for advanced energy projects. And here's an example, a highlight of some of the projects we've done. Everything from small electric vehicle charging station projects to completely net zero energy retrofits of our own union halls, urban agricultural projects. So, we really get in the weeds on everything and anything that requires project development or project financing support and is environmentally and financially accretive for our contractors and the ultimate project beneficiaries. So why bother with all this? Why am I here today talking to you about this? Why do we run this program? Because if we don't, our competition will. I mean, that is the short of it, that for every solar project we don't do as organized labor and the organized electrical contracting industry, non-union contractors or solar developers will do it. I mean, that's really the short of it. Also, these projects tend to have very, very compelling economics. They're very compelling business opportunity for their customers, for our contractors, for our electricians, and even for our utility partners. So it's really important to note that the utilities are not going anywhere, right? Their business models may have to change, and we're seeing that play out across the country. But these projects present a lot of very attractive business opportunities for everyone who is involved. One thing that's really worth highlighting, and this speaks to my personal background, is that energy services projects tend to be counter-cyclical, specifically especially energy efficiency and distributed energy projects, that when the economy isn't doing as well as it should do, people tend to focus on how they can save money. Green energy projects are a great way to do that. This work is also very high value for our contractors, right? It's definitely not low bid work, if you will. It's about us going in and providing, really sophisticated services. And I can speak to the fact, especially in the electric vehicle charging space, and this is very exciting for me to see. Our contractors know more about these projects than any vendors or large technology manufacturers out there. It's very exciting to see our competitive advantages on the ground play out. So, I mean, that's who I am. I'm obviously very excited to get to the conversation part of this evening. I'll leave you with this here again, that we are unique. Organized labor is very unique in that we can go out and we can put policy into place that drives markets, right? We are obviously critical stakeholders in pretty much every policy conversation. We ensure that the policies that get in place when we are effective create markets that are equitable wins for everyone. We then go out and we uniquely invest in that market capacity, not just through, of course, our joint apprenticeship and training centers, but through programs like my own. And then lastly, we go out there, we do projects, we put our ears to the ground and we say, okay, what's working here? What's not working? What else could we do? And then we take that feedback and we put it into constructing more policy to drive more markets. So this is kind of the virtuous circle in which I live. And I'm very excited, Patty, to open this up for discussion with you and everyone else.
Ramsay, thank you so much for that presentation. It's very exciting and very energizing to think about a new way of doing business. And I wanted to ask you, we in Pittsburgh have a fairly traditional conservative union profile. They look for the chance for the job to come and they will respond. What kind of advice could you give us to reaching into our unions to engage them more in this forward-thinking, proactive mode of project development? Do you do workshops for people as far away as Pittsburgh?
Well, Patty, I appreciate the softball question to start this off here. No way I'll get in any trouble based on how I'll answer this. But in all sincerity, I think the most important thing, you're seeing this play out in my backyard of California right now, is ensuring that the new jobs of the green economy are equitable and organized jobs, the same way our the old economy jobs that we may already have meaningful market share are, right? That's the first thing. So if you're going to have a utility commission pass some really ambitious or progressive distributed energy policies, make sure that those distributed energy policies require prevailing wage, right? Incentivize a skilled and trained labor force, and don't just do that for the social benefits of doing so, but do so because that skilled and trained labor force is going to protect your consumers, protect your grid, right? I mean, this stuff is win-win-win, but it definitely takes everyone kind of keeping their eye on the ball and remembering that just because it's a distributed energy asset or it's a green asset, that's important, but it needs to also be a socially and economically responsibly built green energy asset, and we're uniquely positioned to ensure that they are. Yeah, did that answer your question?
Yeah, and I
Okay.
think there's a question from Perry Recker. He's saying, are you familiar with any labor management thinking or practices in neo-Calvinist communities in Canada or the Netherlands or California?
I'm not familiar with the ones in Canada, other than I always appreciate engaging with my Canadian colleagues because they are always so kind. But I am very familiar with the German labor management practices that we, of course, made a part of their constitution following World War II, right? So, I'm a big believer in the value of having labor at the table, and ideally on the board whenever there is one. And it's worth anecdotally sharing that our largest electrical contractor, which is a $1 billion plus a year electrical contractor, they do untold amounts of solar around the country. They're really an inspiring firm. They're employee owned, right? So
employee owned. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I think you mentioned the need to have a new paradigm for the utility system. And I think this is one of the areas that I know we struggle with here because we have a very recalcitrant Public Utilities Commission in Harrisburg. But I've noticed already that interfaces with the utilities have difficulty dealing with customers also being load producers and generation as well. How have you handled that issue of the changing nature of the electric system in its core? That you don't have a central station with the customers around the edge. You now have the customers as part of the generation mix, and that really changes the picture a lot. How have you dealt with that?
Well, Patty, I think the first thing is to note that we're big believers in the all of the above strategy.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, we yet again, we don't think the utility of today is going away tomorrow, right? We just think that the utility of tomorrow is also an incredible business opportunity for us, right? And that's what we just keep coming back to, is that you take community solar as a for instance, mm-hmm. right? This is a policy I know you're passionate about, as am I. Community solar is something that can fit perfectly within a conventional utility model. It's something that can fit very well with existing base load peaker plants, right? It also, of course, fits well with advanced microgrids and utility scale storage as well, right? But it's something that can give everyone the ability to responsibly help with the energy transition, and most importantly, from where I sit, ensure that the utility job of today that is unionized is also unionized tomorrow, right? Because if the utility is going to build a community solar program or even contract one out, all they have to do is ensure that it has a skilled and trained labor requirement, and a prevailing wage plus, as I like to say, and it is a win for the whole community. It is a win for the environmentalists, and it is, of course, a win for the utility ratepayers, or would be.
One of the myths that people hold up when they look at the green economy is that it doesn't pay well and that the skills of the existing economy aren't relevant in the new economy. What kind of skill adjustment do you need to look at when you're looking at the IBEW worker or the IUOE worker when they're looking at the green economy as their future? What would they have to change? So
from where I sit, you don't have to make big fundamental changes. But you do have to, and we are, right? We do invest very proactively in specialized training, right? So two big ones are electric vehicle charging stations and energy storage systems, right? We recognize that these are actually really, really dangerous, that most people don't appreciate that, just plugging your new electric vehicle into the same 240 outlet that your washer or dryer goes into may not be the safest and most prudent choice, right? I say, I mean that very sincerely, right? So we've going back over a decade ago, started investing in dedicated training for electric vehicles. The same goes for energy storage, right? Energy storage, even if everyone is charging the grid from their electric vehicles here in a matter of moments, we're still going to have to build untold amount of battery energy storage plants, distributed and utility scale around the country. And when batteries go wrong, they go really, 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 really wrong, right? Thermal runaways are one of those things that if you talk to a fire marshal or fireman, they will, let's just say, get very uncomfortable very quickly. So, we have a unique responsibility to make sure that our electrical workers are doing this work safely, not just for themselves, but for everyone. Because if we don't do that, and a big battery plant has a thermal runaway event somewhere, it's going to be much, much harder to get that community to make the investments it needs to make, right?
Right. But it will work with the basic skill set of the people that are already in the field. They don't need to go into wild excursions of, new things. It's just applying what they know to the standards of a new application.
Without question, especially if they are one of our a graduate of one of our apprenticeship programs.
Yeah. So we have a couple more questions. One person is asking, what is something that we as individuals can do to promote your work or similar such efforts? What are the things that citizens and customers can do?
Well, I think the big thing is just to be aware that we're out there, right? I think a lot of people forget that organized labor answers the phone, right? I know that sounds silly, but call up your local unions, and if you're working on something, if you're organizing, engage with us. Make sure we're at the table with you, let alone we're at the table with policymakers, and help us be at the table sooner than later. And then, of course, obviously, wherever possible, make sure that your elected officials in particular, let alone your utility regulators, are taking labor standards into account. I mean, I have to say here, Patty, something that frustrates me more than anything is how the investment tax credit, and this gets a little wonky, but the principal subsidy for solar from the federal government for the last decade had no labor requirements and more or less was explicitly designed to circumvent Davis-Bacon, right? So, we put billions and billions of dollars in federal resources into the solar market without any labor standards. Thankfully, this administration and the infrastructure bill has changed that. And I'm still dazed that this is happening. But had that not been the case, right, the entire solar industry would probably be organized at this point, and we would be living in a much, much different economy.
Right. And we have, the community standards for all federal monies, which the Reimagine Appalachia worked really hard to get into that bill. So I'm really glad that it's hopefully going to keep. We have a couple more questions here. One is, are all of the IBEW locals across the United States involved in any CA project development, or are there significant geographic differences that impact this partnership? What are some of the challenges to moving this relationship further along? Like, how do we engage in the Pittsburgh area?
Well, I will note that we used to be a program of just the National Electrical Contractors Association, and we actually got started, I must say, because one of our founders went and presented to President Trumka and said, hey, we think it's important to help, proactively get organized labor into the green energy economy. And he had the foresight to say, go talk to NECA. We are now a NECA IBEW program of California and Nevada specifically, but we're always happy to help our allies and partners wherever we can.
Yeah. And I have a question from Mike. I'm going to not do the long preamble, but he says that our government is still locked into subsidizing the fossil fuel industry. How do you propose that we get organized labor to join forces with environmentalists to build a political force that will shift direction so that we can get labor supporting environmentally sustainable industries and practices as you described?
Well, I think the most important thing is engaging with us, right? I will note, in California, right, we have benefited overwhelmingly from the clean energy transition, but we also have many members who have been put at risk by it, right? So, what we've been doing above all else is ensuring that the jobs that come from the transition are organized jobs. So I think that is just the most important thing, is to make sure whatever policy actions are being taken are going to put labor front and center, right? That you don't just do what the federal government did for the last 10 years at the ITC and say, okay, we're now going to subsidize this clean energy project. We're now going to subsidize this, community solar project. No. You can't just do that. You have to do it and make sure that it's going to result in high road careers, responsibly built projects, and that, ultimately a unionized workforce is going to come out of it.
Wow. Well, I know we have probably a lot more that we could talk about. I know you and I could have a conversation for a long time about restructuring the utility, but I know we're at time at 7:40. I wanted to give you an opportunity to anything you want to tell us or advise us is a closing remark before we move on to the rest of our program.
Patty, I see there's a good question here about trying to engage with the building trades and would I help? That's what I'll leave you with, is that any of you, if you ever need help trying to engage, I'm always available. I'm happy to share my contact information broadly. That's the key thing.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I'm delighted you were able to join us, and thank you so much for your work.
Thanks, Patty.
You're welcome.
Hope to see everyone soon.
Okay, wow. I feel like I've had a really good appetizer and maybe the first course, but I want to. There's a lot more here that needs to be, I think, worked with. I myself am thinking about application of these principles to other industries as well, and it does seem as if the key is that there actually is the power of both the union and the economics of our public economics to develop in the right direction. That has to both go together to politically accomplish what we want to have. So it certainly doesn't shirk away from the political responsibilities that we all have in terms of being able to see that as an arena to have also be able to wield the power that we have in the numbers that we potentially represent, which means that we have to keep organizing too. So thank you very much, Patty, and thank you very much, Ramsay. it's the beginning of a long discussion, and I know we have several programs planned this year that will focus on these same issues. And I'm proud to say that within our organization, I believe that we are in good standing, doing our best to try to bring together the leaders at the workplace, the local union officials and others, with the environmentalists to have dialogue and to talk about the common interest and the common political interest that we would have, and the support for union jobs as part of the public projects that come down ostensibly for sustainability. So we're proud of that, and we want to talk about some more and work on it, and we will be doing that this year. So this is a business meeting, folks, and I'm proud to say that our organization has managed to, despite a third year of up and down pandemic, we've managed to move forward in the areas that we've set priorities on. And with your permission, membership, we'll have some reports from the committees about our activities. We'll try to highlight the accomplishments that we've done this year, and what we're looking forward to this coming year. And I'd like to first call on Jackie Cavalier. Jackie, our intrepid chair of our Archives Committee, to talk about the work of our Archives Committee, which, despite the pandemic, has been able to make collections and begin the arduous process of indexing, preserving, and moving forward the information that we secure to a digital future. So, Jackie.
Thank you, John. Good evening, everyone. It's so good to be with you all, even though it's still in the virtual world. It's so great to see so many familiar faces and some new faces and names on the Zoom screen as well. So I'm going to just jump right in so we can stay on schedule. Because I want to begin, of course, with some introductions, because we have our committee members, as well as, of course, our personnel on this meeting. So it is truly my honor to introduce first Sinead Bly, who is our project advisor, Callie Sheets, who is the BHF archivist, Cassidy Knott, who is our archives administrator, and my co-chair, Perry Recker, as well as our committee members, including John Haer, Jay Hornack, Mark Fallon, Charlie McAllister, Larry McCullough, Mike Stout, Rosemary Trump, and Bill Yund. So I want to just emphasize the importance of this team. As John mentioned, we have persevered, and it is definitely through the leadership of both Sinead and Callie, as well as the transitioning of Cassidy from her position as intern to now archives administrator, that we have completed an extensive amount of work. And I think that you all will see through this report just how much has been done. It amazed me when I did receive the progress report and the update, as well as the plans for the future from our very active and engaged and dedicated group of staff here. And I just sat back for a moment and said to myself, this is really amazing. And I just am amazed at the work they have done in moving this project along. I think you will as well. So in terms of the progress report, we do have a very in-depth explanation of many of the activities, but just to highlight it for the purposes of time, one of the things that we did this past year is we reorganized the staff and reassigned duties for greater efficiency in carrying out the project. We previously had 2 interns, as I mentioned. Cassidy has transitioned into a new position, and our other intern, Molly, had secured a full-time position. So she's no longer with us working as an intern. We worked with the communications committee to develop an archives webpage within the Battle of Homestead Foundation. Beautifully designed website. And I'm just going to click on that rather quickly to show you. Hopefully we'll get up here so I don't spend too much time. Yes, so you'll note that on the website, there is a link to archives. And what we hope to do, of course, is we have our personnel listed as well as some of the activities and some images. And so we hope to do a little bit of a, rotating mini exhibit on the website where we have the flexibility to change some of the pictures and feature some of the items that are included in the various collections and so on. So we have nearly completed 3 collections, including Mark Fallon's, Charlie McAllister's, and Mike Stout's. We have acquired the pump house banners from Bill Yund, as well as some other artwork, so that it is stored safe and sound in Guardian storage. We have upcoming acquisitions scheduled for spring that includes materials from David Demarest, the Dorsey Collection, Jim Homan, and Nick Molnar. We have a plan to do a thorough inventory of archival materials, obviously including some of those acid-free folders and boxes, poster tubes, items that are essential to the preservation process. We are going to be reevaluating the situation in Guardian Storage, which is our safe storage place right now, because we could very possibly be at maximum capacity. Please keep in mind that not only is this a storage space or a storage facility, for us it is a workspace. So Cassidy, Callie, and Sinead are going in and out of that facility working. So they have a designated workspace. So it's not just storage that we are utilizing that space for. And we have some really great news to share. And this is, of course, once again, thanks to the hard work of the staff and the leadership of Sinead Bly in particular in putting together the grant application. We have secured or been awarded the Rivers of Steel grant in the amount of $4,881. How will those monies be used? Well, first and foremost, we are looking forward to a digitization project. And our project plan, which will commence this month, January 2022 through March 2023, consists of various steps. Again, this is just highlighting some of these activities, but we will be joining the Pennsylvania Power Library, which is an electronic library sponsored by the state that in essence gives us the power, the ability to create an online exhibit that will be, an online database, an online collection that will be researchable by people all over the United States. Anyone can access the Power Library. The project will involve creating digitization and data entry guidelines, providing step-by-step instructions. We plan to recruit, interview, and hire at least one archives intern and then complete the onboarding and training process. We will engage in the arrangement, description, and selection of material for digitization of a number of boxes, and certainly a great deal of information that will be digitized as it translates into data. We have a plan for the organization of a small oral history collection of not just members of the Battle of Homestead, but members of the community as well. We are looking to make the larger community informed of the Battle of Homestead archives and special collection through the creation of some, kind of tidbits of information, social media posts and videos. We will be working on the development of electronic finding aids, and we also will be working directly with the Battle of Homestead Foundation Communications Committee to continue to promote the Battle of Homestead Foundation archives and special collection. For those of you that might not be familiar with some of the items that are in the collection, we have numerous photographs. That's one of the things that has been taking place as acquisitions occur, and the documentation process is so very detailed. But you can see we have everything from material culture in the form of pins and clothing, equipment, books, photographs, many papers, and in the form of, whether you have, we have some artwork, we have, as I already mentioned, we have posters, we have newsletters, we have written notes, we have as part of Jim Homan's collection. Of course, some of you may be familiar with, his extensive collection of videos and films. So we are in the process that, of course, will be digitized as well. And this just gives you all a little glimpse into the depths of the archives in Guardian Storage, and just how very well organized it is in a safe space. And so that's where we are obviously currently housed right now. And so that is the report of the Archives Committee. And I welcome any one of our staff that is on the meeting, which everybody's here. So if anybody would like to add anything, please feel free to do so now. I know we're a little bit over time, so I tried to be quick. But if anyone has any questions, I'd gladly address them now, and welcome the staff to offer comments also.
I want to jump in and thank you, Jackie. Amazing. Without Jackie, there would be no archives, and Perry's doing a fantastic job also co-chairing. And thank you. And Cassidy, obviously welcome to the team, and so happy with the work she's done so far. John and Rosemary, thank you so much for your support and everything with the grant funding. So I'll zip it there.
Thank you. Thank you, Sinead. Good to see you, Callie and Cassidy. Thank you all for your hard work. That's all we have, John.
Well, that was quite enough, and more to come. As I can see, Sinead, great to see you again. And a little later on, we're going to talk about some of our members that passed away this year. But I'm also happy to report there's some potential members that were born. And thank you, Sinead, for helping out in that part. And we can move forward then in our report. As you know, if you participated in some of our 8 programs this past year, there was a tremendous variety and really a very high quality for many of the programs that we put on, I guess, if I say so myself, right? But nevertheless, I want to call on Suzanne Donsky, who's been a real firecracker in terms of keeping our program committee on beam and helping us develop and I think, accomplish a wonderful program despite the pandemic. And also we're looking for more and better this coming year. So Suzanne? I think you got to mute, you're muted.
Suzanne.
Hey, Tessa, do we know what's with Suzanne?
Maybe Tess can unmute you. Tess, can you unmute Suzanne maybe?
All I can do is request that she unmute herself. So I'm going to keep hitting that button until it prompts her to do so.
There you are. There you are, Suzanne.
Always something, isn't it? Hello, everybody. I'm speaking to you on behalf of the program committee. And first, I want to introduce to you the committee members. There's John Haer and Rosemary Trump, Larry McCullough, Nathan Ruggles, Elizabeth Berkey, Patty DeMarco, and our newest member, we welcome her with open arms, Pauline Greenlick. We also want to thank Steffi Domike, who served on the program committee for most of the year, but then had to step down for other reasons. Tonight, what I want to do is just tell you briefly about the 3 categories of things that the committee oversees or has worked with. That would be our biweekly breakfast or dessert meetings, our monthly program series that John alluded to, and our Essential Work podcast. So just as a general matter, as was the case with so many organizations, in 2021, the pandemic forced us to continue holding virtual rather than in-person programs. The practice has simultaneously proven to be quite successful in that we significantly broadened our audience base. And by significantly, I can tell you doubled it, literally. 51% more attendees than at the in-person gatherings. Still, we know the virtual programs are less than fulfilling. I think because we really long to be in each other's physical company where we can enjoy the interactions that are really only possible when people meet face to face. This desire for non-virtual programs and gatherings, believe me, is at the forefront of the committee members' minds. And you can be sure that we want to return to in-person programs and that we'll do it as soon as it becomes safe to do so. Now, that's not to say that we'll stop altogether having Zoom as an option, simply because the audience is now across other continents. Meanwhile, we have continued to host these breakfast or dessert meetings via Zoom. These meetups, as Larry likes to call them, keep us in touch with each other, and they keep us up to date on the latest labor, environmental, legislative issues. They keep us engaged with labor history that informs our present and our future. So if you've not had a chance to attend one of our breakfasts, do yourself a favor and join us. I always say you'll be glad you did, and I mean it. Currently, the Zoom link and invitations for the breakfast meetings go to those who've indicated an interest in attending. We were sort of trying to ward against Zoom bombing early in the going. But if you'd like to attend, please drop your name and email address in the chat or send us an email to bhfprograms@gmail.com, and we will add you to the breakfast list and welcome you with open arms at our next meeting. Now I want to take a moment to look back at our regular monthly programs that we presented during the last year. We kicked off the 2021 season in March with a program entitled A Great Blessing to Women, Tonics, Temperance, and the 19th Century Patent Medicine Industry, featuring Dr. Jackie Cavalier, Professor of History at CCAC. Jackie gave us a fascinating look at the allure of unregulated patent medicines that were marketed specifically to women, and then temperance, and then the powerful wave of women-driven political activism of the late 1800s. You can find that program on the website or on our YouTube channel, as with some of our other programs. Our next was in April 2021, when we joined forces with the United Steelworkers for our annual Bernard Kleinman lecture entitled Whitewashing Andrew Carnegie. This program featured Dr. Sarah Papazaglakis, who discussed the impetus behind industrialist Andrew Carnegie's late in life philanthropy and its influence on his historical legacy, which wasn't so charming. The program also included current Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh and Carnegie Museum employees who last year voted to unionize as members of the United Steelworkers, bringing it all around full circle. One focus of the program committee's planning in the last year and continuing to date has been to pursue co-sponsors and collaborators for our programs whenever possible. In this way, we've been able to broaden our audience base while introducing new segments of the community to what we do and why we do it. In May 2021, BHF partnered with the White Whale Bookstore to present Dr. Gabriel Wynant, an assistant professor of history at the University of Chicago, to discuss his new highly acclaimed book, The Next Shift, The Fall of Industry and the Rise of Healthcare in Rust Belt America. It's a vivid history of Pittsburgh's inexorable and contentious transition from steel manufacturing to healthcare provision. Joining Dr. Wynant to discuss his book about work, inequality, and capitalism in modern America were journalist Alex Press and union activist Rosemary Trump. In June 2021, the BHF Program Committee turned its attention to the place where it all began, Homestead, with a program entitled The Destruction of the Ward 80 Years Later by historian Tammy Hepps. With wonderful photographs and illustrations, Ms. Hepps introduced the audience to pre-war Homestead and then took us through the 1941 destruction of the immigrant working class neighborhood, commonly called the Ward. That demolition of an entire residential landscape for the sake of greatly expanding the mill as the country moved toward war set into motion a regrettable pattern for urban renewal projects in the coming decades. Connecting Ms. Hepps' historical insights to similar displacement challenges faced in our region today were commentators Lloyd Cunningham, the vice president of the Borough Council, Homestead, and Curtis Reeves, co-founder of Sea Clear Empowerment. Now, the program committee is always mindful of the critical role that the arts play in our mission to preserve the history associated with the 1892 Battle of Homestead, empower today's workforce, and build strategies for the future of work. Toward this end, in July 2021, we presented a program entitled Union and Protest Songs, Their History and How to Use Them Today, featuring Pittsburgh Labor Choir Director, Dr. Edwin Everhart. Dr. Everhart's historical overview of protest and labor music was interspersed with his performances of several songs and included sing-along opportunities for the audience. Critically, Dr. Everhart also spoke to the strategies for incorporating protest and union songs in today's vigils, meetings, picket lines, and social action gatherings. Now, 2021 marked the 100th anniversary of the Great Battle of Blair Mountain. And for our program in August, the program committee presented a panel discussion entitled "The Battle of Blair Mountain Centennial and What It Means for Working People Today," deftly moderated by Phil Smith, the United Mine Workers of America Director of Communications and Governmental Affairs. A distinguished panel of historians, authors, and activists offered new perspectives on the 1921 battle between West Virginia mining families and corrupt coal companies, a battle that shaped the modern American labor movement. In September, the Battle of Homestead Foundation proudly served as a co-sponsor of and participated in a statewide commemoration of the Battle of Blair Mountain in West Virginia. The 9-day event included films, concerts, reenactments, art and museum exhibits, panel discussions, storytelling, walking tours, a coal fields worship service, and the annual UMWA Labor Day rally. BHF was well represented at the events in West Virginia in double digits. And the event constituted one of the most in-depth labor history commemorations ever to take place in the US. There, BHF was also able to educate others about our organization's work, including through an effectively planned and executed information table at the opening event. Our own Karen Bryant, former chairperson of the BHF Long Range Planning Committee, served as a core planning committee member of the Centennial Observance. Now, the program committee closed out its 2021 season in October with another nod to the arts in a program featuring poet Paola Corso. Ms. Corso treated the audience to readings from her book, Vertical Bridges, Poems and Photographs of City Steps, a tribute to the immigrants who built Pittsburgh's city steps and the steel workers who climbed them to commute to the mills and other sites in Pittsburgh. Joining Ms. Corso were photographer Tim Fabian and Steps activist Joe Balaban for an engaging discussion about one of America's most unique architectural landmarks, and it's right here, more than 800 sets of city steps in Pittsburgh. The program also included a visually beautiful and compelling video about the steps and those who connect to and through them. We'll try to get a link to that in the chat for you. Now, at the present time, the program committee is actively engaged in planning our 2022 program series. We're soliciting program proposals for this season, and we invite you to share with us your ideas for new ways in which to engage our audiences with programs that celebrate our history and explore issues that workers face today. You'll find a link in the chat for the program proposal form, and you can also access it on our website. Also, if you'd like to participate in the rewarding process of planning and presenting our programs, it's not too late to join the committee. Just send us an email if you're interested at bhfprograms@gmail.com. Now, lastly, in addition to our Zoom breakfast and our monthly programs, the program committee works with podcast director Nathan Ruggles for the organization's Essential Work podcast. I'm going to turn it over to Nathan now so he can tell you more about that project. Nathan?
Well, thank you, Suzanne, and thank you, everyone. I'm going to keep this quick, but I am going to share a screen here with some information for you. One second. Okay, so we're going to run through this pretty quickly. I think one of the best ways to illustrate how we've grown with the podcast is to talk about where our listeners are. So we have listeners in a variety of places. They are in McKeesport, they're in Wilkinsburg, they're in Beaver Falls, they're in Philadelphia, they're in Akron, they're in Schenectady, they're in Chicago and Manhattan. They're everywhere from Cambridge, Massachusetts to Prior Lake, Minnesota to El Paso, Texas. They're in San Diego to LA to San Francisco to El Dorado Hills, California. They're in Hilo, Hawaii, Anchorage, Alaska, Toronto to Mexico City. They're in the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago to Brazil, Milan, Italy to Moscow, Russia, Gersthofen, Germany to Melbourne, Australia, Puducherry in the Union Territory of Puducherry in India to Kirkcaldy in the United Kingdom. They're in Taiwan, in the city of Taipei. They're in South Africa in Durban. They're in Bhutan. They are in Oman. They are in a total of 313 cities in 27 countries in 6 continents. I'm sorry to say that we haven't reached Antarctica yet, but we'll see. We'll see. So I think that's one way to illustrate how we've grown, how we've expanded. But another way, I think, just don't take it from people in all those cities. I have some clips from some of the programs this past year. The following clip is our own Patty DeMarco. She interviewed Tom Croft, Managing Director of Heartland Capital Strategies, about the Marshall Plan for Middle America, and she had a comment about that.
We have the opportunity to put money into these places that will actually enrich and create actual wealth in these communities all across Middle America. I think that's the exciting part of this new Marshall Plan and the Reimagine Appalachia Blueprint, and the work that you're doing on driving investment into communities.
We're not getting much of the audio, Nathan.
Oh, okay. I apologize. Let me let me reshare real quick. Sorry about that. Okay.
Going to be wonderful to see how this plays out.
This then will give people a chance to feel empowered.
Here we go.
We have the opportunity to put money into these places that will actually enrich and create actual wealth in these communities all across Middle America. I think that's the exciting part of this new Marshall Plan and the Reimagine Appalachia Blueprint, and the work that you're doing on driving investment into communities, I think is really, really critical and important, and it's going to be wonderful to see how this plays out.
Okay, and we also, you heard a bit of that for a second. At another interview, I interviewed the co-founders of the ASA Social Fund for Hidden Peoples, Dr. Louis Picard and our own Pauline Greenlick, talking about microloans and the financial resources and support they provide to individuals and groups in Uganda.
This then will give people a chance to feel empowered. And we all want to be empowered and feel that we're in charge of our own destinies and not, not just thrown out there and feeling hopeless. So I was very encouraged by that. And I know a lot of people ask me, why are we doing this over there in Uganda? And my basic answer is they're a human being. And we all are here to help each other because we're all human beings. It doesn't matter where we live. But also by giving these people a chance for a job and to become independent.
Okay, we also, I interviewed Joe Trotter, professor of history and social justice at Carnegie Mellon University, about his latest book, Workers on Arrival, Black Labor in the Making of America.
They were instituting and implementing a process of racially divided neighborhoods in America. And Black people living within those areas did not despair and just say, well, you know, this is our lot, we can't do anything about it. They said, we can do something about it. We can do two things. We can build an infrastructure while we are being segregated, and we can use that infrastructure to break down barriers so that we're not segregated, you know, and confined to these spaces, so that we can exercise, you know, the rights of citizens, and at the same time, we can exercise the right of congregation among people, you know, who share our values and our culture.
And my final clip here is from my interview of Jeff Wald, author of the book, The End of Jobs, The Rise of On-Demand Workers and Agile Corporations. We talked about the last three industrial revolutions and the future of work and the challenges that poses to workers.
The big challenge historically in industrial revolutions, and I would argue today, is what do you do with the workers whose jobs are being displaced? How do we retrain them effectively to move to the industries, the job functions, maybe the geographies where work is being created? Because historically, Nathan, we have done a terrible job of it. And historically, you have seen a lot of the social dislocation that gets caused by the economic dislocation. In Europe, this is literally times of revolution. And so we'll see how it plays out here, but I'm always optimistic just because that's my default, but there is work to be done.
Okay, so just briefly, what's coming up next? We're going to have episodes on technological change and the further issue of technological change on workers, class, solidarity, and women immigrant workers in the laundry industry. We're going to be talking to artists and their struggles before, during, and after the pandemic. Recent organizing by the steelworkers in areas of education and others, as well as talking with veterans about the working lives of members of our armed services. But coming up very next with the an episode coming out this evening, a year in review, a year in preview. We have welcomed back two familiar faces. First of all, Rosemary Trump. I'll leave it to you to decide whether she's gazing off into the past or the future. And then we have Charlie McCullister as well, gazing off as well. And coming up also this year, Patty DeMarco will be returning as well with Pathways to a New Economy that works for all of us. I'd just like to thank real quick some of the folks who helped make this possible. Angela Bachman is audio engineer, helps to produce, and she's working on it at this moment. Brittany Sheets designed our logo. Jason Kendall composed and recorded our theme music. Larry McCullough gets the word out on this. And of course, thanks to the program committee for all their feedback and advice. We always take questions, comments, suggestions. You can email us, comments at essentialworkpodcast.org. We have a listener line. That's the number there. I'll also drop it into the chat. And just go to essentialworkpodcast.org, listen, and share. Thank you so very much.
Hey, Nathan, thank you. We really appreciate it. Unfortunately, we're running behind a little bit. We better call Angelo, and at least on the recording, she might be able to cut out about 20 minutes. I don't know. We'll see, but we'll get there where we're headed tonight. And thanks so very much. I think all those cities, we ought to ask our troubadour, Mike Stout, to write a song about all those cities in our podcast. I think it'd be great. So let's move on to the Communications Committee. I know this one's going to be brief because Larry's aware of our time schedule. and we'll try to move it along to get to our friend Wally. So, Larry.
Thanks. Report from Communication Committee. Once again, just trying to bring everybody together as much as possible. Programs in 2021 had a lot of national speakers. So that's always a help. People are very interested in hearing that. A lot of global topics of urgent relevance. We were able to spread the word very well, I think, through our expanded media outreach. E-newsletter, which is how probably a lot of you are here tonight, even has been picking up subscribers, 327 more than this time last year. Which is about a 40% increase. And our YouTube channel now has 64 videos. After tonight, it'll be 65. It's a very broad range of information. We have the Charlie's Monday Marker series with historian Charles McCollister. Of course, the Essential Work podcast, again, trying to connect the foundation with the public. And lastly, we received a very generous grant early in the year from the Arts Equity Reimagined grant committee, which allowed us to update the website and include more information, make it very flexible, accessible, especially with regard to our growing archives. Of course, we're always looking for new committee members. So anybody here, literally, just give us a shout and we'll put you to work in a volunteer fashion. That's really it for communications. But the main thing is communicating with each other, which everybody here does a great job of doing. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Larry. We're very proud of our website, and we look forward to getting it fully operational and being able to use all of its capabilities. We don't just run on volunteer effort. We also need money, and we need people to keep track of that money. And thank goodness we have a treasurer like Rosemary Trump, who is keeping us on top of our budget. So, Rosemary, how about the
thanks so much, John. I appreciate it. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay, good. So I'm happy to report, because of all of you who are participating this evening, both in terms of your voluntary activities to the organization, general support of the organization, and financial support of the organization. We do all this miraculous work with a budget of about $40,000. I mean, that includes paying for, our archiving, the costs of our space there at the Guardian in Homestead, Guardian storage, for the programs, for the podcast, for the Zoom sessions, for the post office box and licensing to operate by the state and the town of Homestead, our accounting fees, our website cost, our Facebook and Twitter costs. It's amazing. I mean, you do the work of providing all the loaves and fishes, and thank you so much. But essentially, last year we, in terms of our collection of income, we were able to received $37,107.75 during January 1 to December 31 of 21. Our total expenses were $39,631.92, which means a net loss of $2,524.17. But the good news is we had a carryover from our general account of 2020 into 21. And our current general fund does have a balance of $26,857.03 as of December 31 of 21. And we have two other designated funds that we received donated to us. The Labor Education Fund has $57,803 in it. And our general grant account has $58,212.86. Our PayPal account had a balance of $1,829.36 as of the end of the year, making a total that cash on hand as a total organization is $144,702.26. We spend most of the grant money for our archives and interns, and we have a plan to do that in 2022. But certainly, I'm happy that Charlie McCollister is going to be doing an appeal at the end of our meeting, which has a real historical context. The work that this organization is doing is truly, truly miraculous, and miracles do happen, that we can continue to do all this preservation as well as planning for the future of the workforce, and helping educate the general public about the contribution of working families and workers and labor. And I thank all of you for participating and making that possible. So thank you. Keep that money coming in, your dues payment current, and any kind of annual funding that you have available that you can share with us. Thank you so much. That completes my report, John.
Thank you, Rosemary. Appreciate it. Our budget for next year is quite similar to the budget this year, and frankly, if we had some more volunteers, I believe that we could do what we hope to do, and money doesn't seem to be the problem so much as being able to believe that if we spend the money, we'll be able to reach our objectives. So we have people that are willing to roll up their sleeves and help make something work and jump in to manage it, probably on a volunteer basis for a while at least. We can do it. We can do it. We have a lot of skill within our membership, and now we just need a little more energy and looking for new people to step in, because the older generation isn't getting any younger. That's for sure. So now I have the pleasure of reporting about our board of directors, and we did have a online election. Every year, our board replaces about a third of its member, or at least they stand for election, in order that we can have a continuity of people and skill levels on the board, and that we don't totally change over at election time. And this year is no exception. Tess, if you could put up the information sheet here, so I could show our members of the board. I could show our members here tonight. The current composition of the board and the changes that don't see it.
One second, that was the wrong window.
Oh, okay.
No.
Here it is. Let me read to you the current seats that we have that have been vacated by incumbents. We had a total of 18 board members. There it is. We unfortunately there are members moving on to other things. Karen was mentioned. Karen Bryan, who did such a great job and worked with us with our interns on projects for the summer, and Karen will be pursuing the marketing of her new book, a novel that she's written about West Virginia. And Dennis Robinson got a job and moved to Miami. He's working with one of the opera companies in Miami. Bob Mason is moving to one of his children's area in the Washington, Baltimore area. No, Boston, in the Boston area. And we'll miss Bob. Bob served as our interim secretary and did a great job for the last 6 months of this year. And Patty DeMarco sadly will be leaving our board, but she left a long list of contributions, and I know we'll continue to be working with her. She, as you know, has her hands full with lots of different things, all good work. And our former secretary, Dan Beaton, will be leaving, and Dan was very helpful as our secretary in helping out with the minutes in last year's election. The remaining incumbents are listed below, and their dates. After we decided to go to a staggered board, we drew lots after the I think it was the 1919 or the 2019 election, and some people drew 1-year lots, some 2, some 3, and this is how we are staggered now. And as you see, we do have, though, 6, how about that? We have 6 candidates and members who have agreed to stand for election, the newest being Mara Bainbridge. And you've seen these candidates' brief bios in the mailings that have gone out about the election. So they're not here, but you can always go to our website and find out more, or check your email and look at the link to find the bios of these members. And I'm pleased to report that the election closed yesterday, and by a unanimous majority of votes, we will have 6 new members of the board, and they are Mara Bainbridge, Perry Recker, Pauline Greenlick, Larry McCullough, Howard Scott coming back to after being out for a while, and Mark Fallon, who stood for re-election and was elected. So our new board will be composed of the remaining incumbents and the members who have these members who were elected at our online election. Now, if you didn't vote, shame on you, but I can tell you that that the vote was a landslide for our 6 candidates. So there will be a task for the new board in its first meeting, which will be next month in February, to fill vacancies in officers. Officers stand for 4 years, but we have had Steffi Domike, who after 8 years of official service as vice president, but really, we're talking probably 20-some years as a founder and an active participant of Battle of Homestead as one of our vital members, is going on to other roles that where she could contribute, and certainly she's been such a valuable asset and an important link with the United Steelworkers Union. So we will need to replace our vice president and our secretary, and they will be chosen. These officers, as are all officers, when their terms are up, are chosen by the board of directors. So that's what'll be going on with our officer vacancies. I just want to recognize those who have left our board, thank them so much for all their contributions, and ask all the members, please, how about we just raise our hands and take a look at the screenshot of everyone after this is taken out. You can take just to raise our hands and say thank you to all of our retiring members, and we do appreciate it from the bottom of our heart. Now I want to call on Sharon Beatty to give us a brief membership committee report. Sharon is the one who sends people the new cards after they renew their dues and sends new members welcome letters. And she does a great job. And she just wants you to know that it's really important, that she's going to tell you a little bit about the membership function. So, Sharon? Hi there.
Yeah, okay. I'll be quick. If you have changed your address or your phone number, particularly since you signed up as a member, please email that new information to me. I put my email in the chat. If you're getting emails, we have your email. So the membership rolls are getting up to close to 300 people, but we send emails out to hundreds and hundreds more. So to save me from having to look at one email list to find out information. I would just appreciate if you've moved, a phone number has changed, just get that information to me. If you are a lifetime member, I hope that I sent you a card that noted that. If anybody is a lifetime member and didn't get a card that says lifetime, please let me know that. And then as you renew your membership, you will be getting a new card and a welcome letter. Thanks.
Thank you, Sharon. It's great, and thank you for helping out. There's the famous lamp that we see in our breakfast every day. So thank you.
Bob's here too, and he does a lot of the book work too. He's the helper. Yeah, there he is.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Now I know some of you have had some trouble with the PayPal trying to get your dues paid online, and we're going to do our best to try to track it down. Seems to be working for some and not for others, but there still is some bumps in the application of in the new website that way, and we'll be working on that. And we hope to also integrate our dues better with our whole database. So thank you very much for all your help. Now we're going to move to a section that briefly recognizes some of our dear members that have passed away this year. Tessa, if you could help us out. We call this section, it's going to be brief, we call it Rest in Power. We want to first see and remember Labor's troubadour from Pittsburgh, Ann Feeney. Ann was a longtime member of Battle of Homestead. There was not a picket line or an event that she would not lend her services and her creative talents to. And we miss Ann a lot. She made a life and career of support with her talent to labor movement across the country and in Europe and Sweden and other places as well. And we miss you and thank you for all your contributions. Jim Homan, there he is. Jim is a longtime member, had worked at the University of Pittsburgh for the Pitt Publishing, handled a lot of their publicity, was a real raconteur, always had a funny joke up his sleeve for us, a regular at breakfasts. Jim also, as noted by Jackie, had a video, handled the video of early Battle of Homestead events and has a whole collection that we now have in the archive. We're talking 15 to 20 years worth of programs that the Battle of Homestead had done. Jim passed away, but was so important to the members of the Battle of Homestead, and Jim's nieces and nephews who knew him and loved him well were so enamored of the Battle of Homestead and Jim's accounts of his activities with the Battle of Homestead. They asked us to participate in a special memorial for Jim at the Pump House this year, which we did. And it was videoed, and we have a wonderful video done by Pauline Greenlick of the testimony to Jim, and it's worth seeing, and you can, on the Battle of Homestead YouTube channel, Memorial to Jim Homan. Finally, John Hemington. John Hemington was a staple for our breakfasts for the last 5-6 years at the Battle of Homestead. He was a quiet guy, but still water runs deep, as they say. John graduated college as a social worker. His college was interrupted by his service in the Army. He graduated as a social worker, decided to go to law school, got his law degree, became interested in human services and computer technology, and worked for nonprofits. But what I think John liked to do the most after playing golf and watching NASCAR, what he liked to do most was compile an email list from his countless hours reading about and sharing what he read with a large group of friends through his email. His passion was to understand life, history, politics, economics, and the world. And he expanded what he learned by keeping a long email list of friends and relatives and sending out the information. Nothing made John madder than to learn about people that cared about deficit spending. He said, get over it. That's the nature of how the economy advances. So, John, we know you're looking down, maybe and smiling at the comment about deficit spending. So we appreciate these members. I also want to bring up, we don't have a picture tonight, but the memory that last year about this time, our annual meeting, our guest speaker was AFL-CIO President Rich Trumka. And Rich, as we know, died very unexpectedly and left us quickly. And we want to remember him and again thank him and the other officers of the National AFL-CIO who supported his appearance with us, his speech with us about the future of work. We want to recognize his wonderful work with the AFL-CIO and actually applaud his successors who now I think have charted a new course that Rich had started for the AFL-CIO. And we were very proud to have Rich be our featured speaker last year and know that he rests in peace and perhaps is smiling down on us now as well. So with that, rest in power, comrades. We miss you. So now, I'm very pleased to introduce Pauline Greenlick, a filmmaker, world traveler, a wonderful friend and activist. And Pauline is going to introduce our friend Wali Jamal. And Pauline, you got the floor. Welcome to the board of directors as well.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And it is quite an honor for me to introduce Wali Jamal. Wali Jamal is no stranger to Pittsburgh, nor to the Battle of Homestead Foundation. To Pittsburghers, Wali is widely known as an actor, playwright, and artistic director. He has performed on many Pittsburgh stages for the past 20 plus years, including Pittsburgh Public Theater, Quantum, and numerous other additional venues. He is best known as being the only actor in the world who has performed in all of August Wilson's 10 plays. In addition, he performed in Wilson's one-man show, How I Learned What I Learned, which earned him the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette Performer of the Year in 2018. Wali has been involved with the Pittsburgh Playwrights Theater for over 20 years. During that time, he wrote and was the lead actor in his one-man play about Pittsburgh's well-known African-American, Dr. Martin Delaney, titled Martin R. Delaney, The Pittsburgh Years. Wali has a very special connection with the Battle of Homestead. In 2019, he was invited to speak about Reverend Martin Luther King at our annual meeting, and he also joined us at our regular gatherings at the Pump House and the Wednesday morning breakfast at the waterfront Eaton Park. The reason why Wali is speaking this evening actually started several years ago. Wali joined us at the Eaton Park one Wednesday morning, and he just happened to sit next to one of our members, Joe Szalanski. Joe and Wali hit it off, and they both shared with each other their love for Pittsburgh and its history. Joe shared with Wali the book he had written, Boarding the Westbound, which is about Joe's father who lived in East Vandergrift. Joe's father was locally well known for his journals about his life as a hobo and then his life in the mills. Hearing that, Wali looked at Joe and said, "This would make a great movie and play." Fast forward several years later, this past June 2021, Wali and Joe met once again, with a conversation going back to Joe's book. Wali remarked again this would be a great play, and that was the moment those words became a reality. Soon after, Wali immediately started writing a play based on Joe's book. Several weeks ago, a few of us were invited to listen to excerpts of the play. We sat in awe, listening to Wali bring to life Joe's book, and we were mesmerized by Wali's words and his excellent acting skills. It is with great pride that I welcome Wali this evening to share with you an excerpt of this great literary achievement. I know you will be transported back into a time in Pittsburgh's history when Pittsburghers lived and breathed our great steel heritage. I now welcome Wali to our group once again.
Hello, 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 hello. And this is the book that you were referring to, Pauline, Boarding the Westbound. And that is an actual hobo term for dying, leaving this world, this earthly existence. They say when you die, you board the Westbound. And this book, yes, is by Joe Szalanski Jr. This is Joe Szalanski Sr., who the book is about. He looks kind of like Ed Asner to me, a little mix between Ed Asner and Peter Boyle. But what an incredible guy, and what an incredible thing that he had done. And like Pauline had said, Joe and I we just hit it off like brothers, and we just talked about the possibilities of this story making it to the stage and to the silver screen, perhaps. And I know that we've gone over on a little bit of time, so I just want to read you guys. I want to read you a passage that was actually written by Joe Szalanski Sr., and it was his version of the 23rd Psalm, Depression style, 1932, with Hoover as the president. Hoover is my shepherd. I am in want. He makes me lie down on park benches. He leadeth me beside the still factories. He disturbeth my soul. He leadeth me into the paths of destruction for the party's sake. Yea, though I walk through the strike valley of the shadow of depression, I anticipate no recovery. For Hoover is with me. He prepareth a destruction in my salary, in the presence of mine enemies. He anointeth my small income with taxes. My expenses runneth over. Surely unemployment and poverty will follow me all the days of the Hoover administration. And that was when he was out there in it, living this really hard, scrapple life, making a name for himself by traveling to all 48 states with 48 cents, traveling 15,000 miles on 48 cents. And it was a big deal. During the Depression, during that time, it made him a big deal. And so I know we're kind of strapped for time. So I want to read a scene from the play that I'd written. Now, to preface it, Joe Szalanski had talked his buddy Kelly into taking this trip, into going and doing this. And it really took some talking. I'd really like to get into that one, but I want to get into the meat of the play. And like right after Kelly hurt himself, they were assisted by this black guy named Jacob. And Kelly had to go home because he got hurt. And so Jacob, he started traveling along with Joe, and they formed a friendship. And here's this scene where they wander upon a hobo jungle, as they call them, a little hobo camp. They were called jungles. So Joe and Jacob walk up there. Joe, looks like they got a little jungle over there set up. What do you think? Maybe they friendly, but you got to be invited in. You think they let us in? Well, there's one way to find out. He starts toward the jungle off stage. Then suddenly a hobo is manhandled and thrown to the ground by two huge white men. They look at Joe and Jacob, then each other. They shake their heads, and then they return to the camp off stage, leaving the hobo in front of Joe and Jacob. The hobo picking himself up. I wouldn't go in there if I were you. They ain't hospitable at all. It so would seem. What happened? What was the matter in there? Hobo. Oh, they're just a bunch of soreheads. Yeah. What'd you do with that? Nothing. I'll tell you what I did. I helped them build that shanty. I helped them build the fire and everything. For the love of Mike, all I wanted was a little son of a bitch stew, a little bit of that hardtack they had. They got some son of a bitch stew in there? Yeah. So what'd you do? They got you kicked out. Yeah, if you helped them do all that, why'd they throw you out of there like that? Yeah, I mean, they really give you the bum's rush there, bud. Yeah, come on, what'd you do? Was it something you said, maybe? Oh, they got no sense of humor. I was tired, and I was just sitting down to some of that stew. Then this guy starts passing around a picture of some dame. So the picture makes it around to me. I'm looking at it, and I notice that the picture's hand-drawn, you know? And me, I'm looking at it, I'm like thinking, man, I got no opinion. So the guy insists that I tell him what I think of his picture. So I says, I don't know what the guy got for drawing that picture, but he should have got life in Sing Sing. Turns out it was the guy's mother. What did I know, for Pete's sake? Yeah, I would have threw your ass out of there too, talking about that man's mama like that. Well, hell, I didn't know it was a frame-up. I tell you, it was to get rid of me after doing all that work I done. Looks like you fell for it. You didn't have to say all that trying to be funny. You gotta admit, you saying that kind of made it easier for them to throw you out. So what you gonna do now? There's another jungle a little ways down the tracks. I'll go try my luck there. You fellas might as well come with me. You won't get nowhere with these mugs. No thanks, Bob. I think we're okay here. Yeah, we okay right here. Wish you luck, mister. Yeah, luck might be all I need. One never knows, do one? The hobo exits. Jacob, I got a feeling they're gonna throw him out of that next place too. Yeah, I think you're right. He reminds me of a friend back home. He's sniffing, smelling some of that son of a bitch stew wafting through the air. That stew sure smells good. That ain't no pigeon stew. Yeah, smell like they might have caught hold of a cat or a dog. Today, smells fresh. That joker say, you say that joker had some hardtack over there? I ain't asking for nothing. He say they unhospitable. Yeah, looks like we gotta settle for a whiff tonight. I'll take it. I done got so used to not eating, I gets full up just from the smell of food. Hey, Joe, you said that joker back there reminded you of a friend of yours back home. Where's back home? Where you from? I come from Pennsylvania, the Keystone State, they call it. Pennsylvania? Whereabouts? A little town called East Vandergrift, about a half hour north of Pittsburgh. What they got up there in East Vandergrift? That same thing they got everywhere, friend. Nothing. And plenty of it to go around. Come on, now they got something up there. I'm telling you, friend, nothing. Well, what was up there before it all went to shit? The mill. The American Sheet and Tin Plate Mill. It's where everybody worked in East Vandergrift. Mostly everybody. Making tin and sheet metal. I had about 1,000 guys working there before it all like you say, went to shit. They got a skeleton crew working there. Nah, handful of people doing the work of an army, and heaven forbid they get hurt or quit, else they be starving like the rest of us out here. If you could get work there, would you go? You kidding? Hell no. Why not? You said everybody else worked there. What's wrong with you? Dangerous. Way too many hours. Back-breaking work, friend, especially if you were Polish, with which I'm. What's Polish got to do with it? In my time, Polish guys bottom of the totem pole at the mill. Irish guy was at the bottom till us Polish and Hungarians come along with them Russians and Italians. If Polish is at the bottom, I know there ain't no colored folks up in there. No, I think there's like two. Wow, two whole colors. Imagine that. Yeah, they were able to keep their jobs when they were started canning everybody. Of course, the jobs they had, nobody else wanted to do, even during this rough patch. What they have to do is worse than the work they give us Polish. Everybody do what they got to do. Yeah, but the mill's the last piece of work I want. The mill's a dead end. That's why I'm out here. Anything's better than the mill. I ride these rails even though I know there's a 99% chance that there's nothing in the next time. It's better than sitting still, wasting away in one place, with dying, being worked to death in that shit house of a mill. If they offered me a job in that hellhole today, I'd be on the next rattler to points I know. So, where are you from? I've been hopping these freight trains for more than a few years now. Been just about everywhere. I ain't been to Chicago. Word I got was just don't go. There's nothing there. Nothing but jail for a colored man. They might take you right off the train straight to the road gang. I heard the same about New York. That's why I ain't been there either. Colored man ain't much safer in the north than it is in the south. I reckon I've been just about everywhere else. I see. But I mean, where were you born? Where you grew up? What you want to know all that for? You writing a book or something? Hey, you asked me where I'm from. The hell, just making conversation. Hey, you ain't hard, are you? Law after you? No, ain't no law after me. I just ain't been one to do all that palaver. They say I'm the strong, silent type. I keep to myself. Come on, Jake. We're just talking here. What? You got some pressing engagement to get off to? Where are you from? I was born and raised in North Carolina. My family's sharecropping there. Sharecropping on a tobacco plantation. My peoples were slaves there on that land before the war to freed us. The Scales plantation. My granddaddy run off, fought in that 104th Colored Troops. Fought bravely, got decorated. He bought some land after the war. They slowly finagled and hoodwinked him, charging him crazy prices on goods and supplies, putting him way behind, making him so beholden to them that they just took what he had. They still working there. Sounds like what the banks do to most people. Mortgage you right out into the street. Yeah, well, things got real tight. By the time I was 12, my daddy taught me how to skin a cat. Joe, I thought it was just an old saying, but there really is more than one way to skin a cat. Them same ways work with dogs too. So once my little brother Lemuel turned 12, I taught him how to trap and skin them too. He got good at it. And why'd you have to do that? You're talking about years and years ago. This depression didn't start until but a couple of years ago. That's when the depression started for you, my friend. My depression started before I was born. What you white folks call depression, us black folks call Tuesday. So when you start jumping freights? One day, about 7 years ago, me and Lemuel snagged us a couple of mutts. We took them around the back to render. When my daddy came out the back door, looked me square in the eye. He said, Jacob, boy, you got to go. There ain't enough to go around. You man now. You got to go out and fend for yourself. Then he handed me a bundle. Had one of my daddy's shirts, a pair of socks my mama made, some corn dodgers, and this here mouth heart. This was my daddy's prized possession. Kept it in a handkerchief, always had it. Long as I can remember it, he played it like Gabriel played his trumpet. So many nights we would go to bed forgetting how hungry we was after listening to one of my daddy's serenades. That's what he used to call it. He'd play us to sleep with his little lullabies. He just made them up, played us a different song every night. I asked him why he gave it to me. I asked him why he didn't give me his gun. He told me, say, this thing be your best friend. It'll see you through the tough days, hungry nights. It'll get you a meal or two. It may even open up a door or so that might otherwise be slammed in your face. Don't play the wrong song around the wrong people now. Don't you do that. Yeah, it might get you killed, might get you locked up. But you more better off with this here than with any gun. That gun ain't gonna bring you nothing but trouble. You'll see, he ain't steered me wrong yet. Hey, Jake, that was swell. You're pretty good, man. Hey, I get by. Just trying to remember songs that my daddy played. The two large men that threw the hobo out earlier appear. Hobo one. Which one of you mugs was playing that harmonica? That would be this gent right here. That's so? That what you were playing? I'm sorry. Didn't mean to disturb nobody. I'll quit playing. Not at all. We think you sound pretty good. We'd like to invite you in and offer you some stew. I'd be delighted. I thank you. So Jacob starts gathering his things. Hey, what's the handle you go by? Name's Jake, but they call me the Skinner. Okay, Jake the Skinner. I seen him around. Yeah, he's been riding them rattlers for years, just like us. So Joe starts gathering up his stuff. Hey, well, hey, that's mighty kind of you fellas. Hey, that stew smells pretty. Where the hell you think you going, stranger? I'm with Jake. I mean, the Skinner. We're partners. Jacob looks at him. Yeah, well, who the hell are you? The name's Joe. I'm from Pennsylvania. Yeah, but what's your handle out here? What? Jacob says, he's the Keystone Kid. Yeah, that's what they call me. They call me the Keystone Kid. Yeah, that's it. He knew out here. Hey, you hot? You got the law looking for you? No, I'm a bum, but I ain't no crook. They both look at Jacob for final approval. Jacob nods. He all right. All right, come on then, Keystone. The gatekeepers exit. Joe picks up his bindle. The Keystone Kid, huh? You like that, huh? Like that? Hell yeah, I like it. Thanks, Jake. Partners. Is that right? Partners? Hey, you and me against the world, buddy. Lights fade on the scene and the lights, come up on another scene. And that's just to give you an idea of life out there and the camaraderie that arises when you are in this thing during this depression. The Depression was a great equalizer of sorts, but there were still hierarchies that existed. And Joe winds up going ahead and traveling to each one of these states, and he makes it back. He started in July, and he made it back home to East Vandergrift by Christmas. And during that time, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, this is 1932. So just before he gets home, Franklin Delano Roosevelt gets elected president of the United States, and that's where the Depression starts making its big turnaround with the National Recovery Act, and that's where I get to invoke a little bit of steelworking and some union and some solidarity stuff in there, where they convinced Joe to go ahead and work at the mill after years of him protesting and saying no. And I do that by inserting this guy named Philip Murray, who was the first vice president of the CIO. And he was the president of the United Mine Workers for like 20 years. And then he got affiliated with the US Steel Workers. And he really made some turnarounds with the National Industrial Recovery Act under the Roosevelt administration. There were some really big changes happening, and there were guys that were getting, they were getting less hours. They were getting time off. They were, getting, there were strides being made union-wise. And Philip Murray, this happens to be the name of the elementary school that I went to when I was a little guy in St. Clair Village, which was put up there, St. Clair Village, to facilitate the steel workers. So Philip Murray gets put in there, and that's what convinces Joe to go ahead and start working at the mill when in March 8th in 1940, he goes to work just 5 minutes before 4, 10-ton piece of metal, steel falls on him, crushing him to death. And it doesn't end there. But it's an intriguing story. And I thank y'all so much for, listening to this little part. And there's going to be a reading of it. This play is you're going to hear about this play, definitely. And it's coming. And we're going to be doing a reading of it up there in East Vandergrift, where Joe's going to speak. Joe Szalanski Jr. will be speaking and talking about the book and talking about the play that'll be coming, The Tale of the Keystone Kid. So I'm going to turn it back over if there's anybody left. And I thank y'all so very much for having me on board this evening.
Hey, Wally, that's fabulous. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you, John. Thank you, Battle of Homestead Foundation.
The Keystone Kid. All right.
Yes, sir.
Unfortunately, Joe can't be with us tonight, but unless he's on by phone, we were trying to get him on by phone. He's not in the digital world at all. But it keeps him happy, I think, not being in the digital world as well. But I know he'll be happy to see a video of this somehow. Maybe we can arrange for that, that he can have a cassette that he can take a look at. Hey, Wally, we really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
What a treasure trove we have of artists and culture in our city as well. Okay, well, we're sorry to have kept you here longer than usual, mostly attributable to our reports. But I do want to say that our President Emeritus, Charlie McAllister, is here and wants to share a little history with us before we go. And, Charlie's good. So if you don't mind getting out your checkbook or your wallet, it'll help our organization a lot. So, Charlie.
Basically, I'm here to make an appeal for folks to contribute because the organization has got a lot on its plate. I was going to just mention some of the things that weren't mentioned, and we're not going to talk about anything we've already talked about, but we began with really in 1992 with sponsoring the book, The River Ran Red, the film, The River Ran Red by Steffi and Nicole Fouteau. We had a major symposium at the Carnegie Library. We had a terrific, very moving graveyard commemoration where we found 3 of the unmarked graves of the men killed at Homestead, and we put in markers for them and dedicated them. I think right from the beginning, by 1988, we had moved from Swissvale, where we started. The 4 of us had moved over to Homestead and began the tradition of Wednesday morning breakfasts, which now run 32 years up until COVID, continuously every Wednesday for 52 weeks a year, even on Christmas, and maybe it wasn't right on Christmas Day, but we pretty much have kept a tradition going. We hope to get back, obviously, together. The physical connection is so important. In 2008, we published the foundation, The Point of Pittsburgh, and a show was organized by Lynn Squilla and sung by Mike Stout at the Carnegie Lecture Hall. It was filled. It was later repeated for the National Meeting of the Working Class Association at Pitt. $70,000 was raised from unions and individuals to publish it, and the sales of it really kept us going for 4 or 5 years without having to do membership. That same period, we got a memorandum of agreement with the Pump House, who are our home, and Bernie Kleinman did that negotiation for us, a formidable negotiator, and General Counsel of the United Steelworkers. And after he died, we instituted the Bernie Kleinman Lecture to remember him. In 2017, with the leadership of Jerry Fitzgibbons, we had a spectacular 125th anniversary of the 1892 strike, and we had an original play by the great Shakespearean actor Mark Rylance, who is often referred to as the greatest actor in the English language, at the Homestead Library, plus an original play by Mark Southers and Wali Jamal at the Pump House. In 2019, we marked the assassination of United Mine Worker organizer Fanny Sullins, the commemoration by the community at the spot where she was murdered, at the Steelworker Hall, which was the mill that she was trying to organize, and then followed by a mine worker service in the evening at her gravesite. We also, it was mentioned, we went to the Battle of Blair Mountain, but it's so wonderful to see Wali and what he's done with Joe Szalanski, who's been such a faithful member, who's been so faithful to his father's memory, and what that is a wonderful thing to look forward to. But we also have another dear friend and member of our foundation, Shakespearean actor Mark Rylance, is nearing the completion of an epic tale of the homestead from 1892 to 1919, and the prospects, we understand, look pretty good for its production. And so at this point, my job is to appeal to folks for help. A number of people have stepped forward to donate $1,000, and President John Haer has offered lifetime membership for those who do. But we're very much an organization that believes from each according to their ability, and to each according to their need. And our sliding scale dues structure has always reflected that. The most fundamental asset that we ask from people is their effort. Their collective effort and their concerted activity has always been and always will be the fundamental bedrock of the Battle of Homestead Foundation. Help us out, join us, give us some money. We need to hire some staff to help the help John Haer and others who are doing so much work. We really ask you to give a hand. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlie. We're happy we got you on because we love to hear you talk. I do, anyway. Folks, this brings us to our 25-minute late exit time. We appreciate all of you for hanging on with us, and we especially appreciate the fact that we now have over 1,200 people that we are in contact with through our emails and information, and our membership lists, our overall membership lists approaching 300 with current up-to-date membership in the nature of about 170. So we're working at it. We do appreciate all that you can contribute. And why don't you give it a try in terms of volunteering for one of our committees? We'd like to talk with you. I'm happy to talk with you if you'd like to be part of our committees. I know our board members took on the obligation of being on one of the committees and serving as liaison to our various committees. So you may not think that you don't have much to contribute, but you really do, and there's lots to do. It won't be too long before we'll be meeting in person again, I do believe. And then I think what we'll do is we'll have some kind of hybrid system, because there are advantages to meeting online, but they cannot replace meeting in person as well. And so we're going to do both and enhance our programs. So let me thank you again for turning out. We'll see you our next breakfast, which is 2 weeks from last week. And you'll check your email. You'll see when we'll have our next breakfast on a Wednesday morning. And we hope to see you there. And that's where you can catch up on the activities. So to all of our guests and committee members, thank you so much for hanging out with us and for making the presentations. And we're looking forward to a better year. And we're looking forward to moving ahead with all of our goals. So thanks everybody. Thanks, Charlie. Thanks, our committee members. Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Ramsay. Thank you all. Take care and stand in solidarity with all.